Hey guys, my name's Keenan. That's my actual real name. I've been going by Ken this whole time, but I thought now it might be a little time for transparency. So my name's Keenan, and welcome to my channel. It's Aries Moon is the name of my new channel I just created, all about narrating stories of all kinds, from every genre, horror to you name it. And it's good to finally meet y'all so y'all can see my face, what I look like behind all my narrations. And the reason I'm doing this today, actually, I'm not sure if I'll show my face again, but I might maybe for special occasions and stuff. But today was a really good story. I asked the AI to build me a longer story for today, so it will be long today. And I am looking forward to reading this. This is a story that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time. It's about EMPs and survival, and kind of into the prepper world. I think if y'all are preppers out there, y'all know and understand some of the concept of this story. I think it makes a really good fictional story. Who knows? Eventually, maybe not be fiction. Who knows? But I'm really excited about today's story, and it's definitely been something I've been wanting to do for a long time. And so I'm excited to be here today, guys, and I hope y'all really enjoy this story. So here we go. Let's do this. Today's story is called The Last Bastion. I'm going to do my more mysterious. If you've ever played Alan Wake, he has a real raspy, mysterious kind of side of tension in his voice. So that's kind of what I'm going to go through today with this one, since it is kind of, on the edge of your seat and a little bit mysterious too. So today's, so without any further ado, I know this is going to be a long video, so I'll get to it. I thank y'all for listening, guys. The Last Bastion. Chapter 1. The Early Whispers. The world was changing, and it felt like a dark storm was gathering on the horizon. For years, whispers of impending crisis filled the air. A mixture of conspiracy theories and real concerns about technology had run amok. The threat of electromagnetic pulse event, or EMP event, loomed over the earth like a specter, pervading conversations in both quiet coffee shops and loud political arenas. Eli Carter stood on his front porch, the twilight casting long shadows over the fields of corn that had surrounded his modest home in the rural Nebraska. It was a worn out farmhouse, one he inherited from his grandfather, who was a firm believer in self sufficiency and preparedness. Eli had taken those lessons to heart more than most. While his friends and neighbors seemed blissfully unaware, he spent his weekends researching survival tactics, assembling tools, and stockpiling supplies. He leaned back against the railing, a cup of coffee warming his hands. Across the street, the Peterson family had just returned from a week-long vacation, oblivious to the world's gradual descent into chaos. Eli watched as they unloaded their car, feeling a pang of envy at their carefree laughter. A part of him wished he could be like them, blissfully ignorant of the warnings that echoed throughout the news feeds and the online forums. The phone buzzed in his pocket, breaking his reverie. It was Tom, his neighbor and fellow prepper. "Hey, Eli, did you see the news?" Tom's voice crackled through the line, urgent and breathless. "What news?" Eli asked, his stomach tightening. "It's happening. They're discussing the EMP threat on the national news, and there's talk that certain groups are planning something big. We need to get together and discuss your plans." Eli's heart raced. Tom was right. The nation's collective anxiety was rising. Tom was right. The nation's collective anxiety was rising, and the threat felt more real than ever. "Meet me at the old barn in an hour," Eli replied, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He slammed the phone down and set his coffee aside. This was the moment he had been preparing for years. Chapter 2: The Gathering Storm. An hour later, Eli found Tom waiting for him in the dim light of the weathered barn. Old farm tools hung on the walls, remnants of a life that was fading away in the modern world. Tom was pacing, his brow furrowed with concern. The atmosphere crackled with an urgency that felt almost palpable. "They're predicting an attack on the power grid," Tom said, his voice almost lowered to a whisper. "If they succeed, we could be plunged into darkness." Eli ran through his hand through his hair, feeling the weight of the world settling on his shoulders. How long could it take to recover? Nobody knows. With an EMP, everything goes down. Cars, phones, the electric grid. We could be looking at years before things are back to normal. Eli felt a mix of dread and determination. What do we need to do now? Tom launched into a list of supplies and provisions they needed to get together: weapons, food, water, medical supplies. Eli nodded along, feeling the similar rush of excitement that came with planning a survival strategy. In this moment, amid the looming dread, he felt a sense of purpose. As their plans took shape, they exchanged ideas about fortifying their homes, securing water sources, and creating a network with other preppers in the area. The conversation turned to the possibility of forming a cohesive community, one that looked out for each other and ones that looked out for one another in a time of crisis, echoing the old ways of survival that Eli's grandfather had lived by. Hours later, as they finally emerged from the barn into the cool night air, Eli felt invigorated. They were ready for whatever was coming their way. Chapter 3: The Event. It was a bright morning 3 days later when everything changed. Eli woke up to a shrill siren blaring from the local news station, piercing through the quiet of dawn like a cry for help. His heart raced as he scrambled to turn on the tiny portable radio he kept in his bedroom. The voice of the broadcaster sent chilling waves through the air. "This is not a drill. An electromagnetic pulse has been reported, devastating the eastern seaboard. There is no power, and immediate panic is occurring." The announcer's words faded into a static frenzy as Eli's thoughts spiraled. He had prepared for this, had even trained himself to remain calm, but nothing could ever prepare him for the reality of it. He grabbed his backpack, filled it with essentials: the water, food, first aid kit, and his grandfather's old rifle. Outside, the world was waking up to chaos. Cars were pulling to the side of the roads, people were frantically trying to communicate on their phones, and kids were crying. Eli took a moment to breathe, to ground himself. His training kicked into gear as he formulated a plan. He grabbed a notepad from the kitchen, jotting it down, a list of people he needed to contact, beginning with Tom. Chapter 4: The Rallying Call. Tom's house was only a few hundred yards away. Eli raced down the narrow country lane, dodging abandoned cars and people milling in confusion. "Eli!" Tom called from his front porch, relief washing over him as he locked eyes. "I was just coming to find you." "It's time," Eli said, his throat dry with tension. "We need to gather everyone in the community. They need to know how to protect themselves." Tom nodded, already at work securing weapons and the emergency communication radios that he had stocked up just for such an occasion. With rapid-fire efficiency, they made a plan to meet at the nearby school, the largest building in the area and a center of the community. Within the hour, they gathered everyone they could muster: families, individuals, old friends, and newcomers. As the discussions unfolded, Eli took charge, leveraging his knowledge and experience. "Listen, everyone," he said, raising his hands to the quiet crowd. "Right now, we can't rely on outside help. We need to band together, fortify our homes, and gather supplies, and decide how we can protect each other." Some nodded, others looked skeptical. A woman stood up. "What if we get more attacks? What's the plan for the next few days?" "We build a fortress," Tom interjected. We protect what's ours. We scout the area, find clean water sources, and keep watch over our families. Eli and I have prepared for this. One after another, they voiced their fears, but Eli and Tom carefully answered each concern, establishing a chain of communication and raising morale as they did. That night, as darkness enveloped their small town, Eli found a sense of camaraderie that had long been absent. The community moved into action, solidifying defenses around their homes and creating a system for sharing resources. Chapter 5: The Unknown Enemy. Days passed, marked by uncertainty and strained relationships. The initial communal euphoria morphed into unsettling reality that left them anxious. Food supplies dwindled. The rumors began to circulate about looting in nearby towns. Eli's instinct warned him that they need to prepare for the worst. "What's our plan if someone tries to break in?" one man spoke up during a tense community meeting. "I won't let anyone take what's mine." Eli raised his hand for silence. "We need to set up a watch system. Everyone takes turn keeping guard. If we work together, we can deter anyone who tries to exploit the chaos." "Let them come," someone shouted defiantly. "We shall show them what we're made of." Eli rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of the responsibility pressed against him. The next day, he and Tom planned to visit a strategic location, an old military installation on the outskirts of town that might offer resources. As they approached the rusted gate of the installation, heart rates elevated. They found the area surprisingly intact. It was overgrown with weeds, but many supplies remained, and a ghostly reminder of what had once been. "I think we're in luck," Tom said, examining the perimeter where the remnants of an old machinery lay scattered. He searched for barricades, food stocks, and anything useful. Eli had to agree, this installation could be their salvation. But then they spotted fresh footprints scattered across the ground. "Someone's been here," Eli said, a chill running down his spine. "We need to hurry." The thought of rival groups scavenging for supplies sent urgency coursing through them as they gathered what they could, but with every passing moment, the nagging feeling of being watched crept in. Chapter 6: Shadows and Secrets. As the sun set behind the horizon, Eli and Tom returned to the community where their newfound supplies and fortified the perimeter. Tensions were palpable. A threat loomed nearby. They could feel it. That night, while the others slept, Eli took his turn on watch with a man named Jake, a newcomer who had originally come to escape the city life's grind. The two men sat in silence, scanning the periphery for any signs of movement. "What do you think is happening out there?" Jake finally asked, glancing sideways at Eli, his voice hushed. "Is it only for terrorists, or is it something more?" Eli hesitated, recognizing the shadows creeping into the minds of people around him. "It could be anything, but people are desperate. That kind of desperation can make people do terrible things." They continued to talk about their theories late into the night. As the clock neared midnight, their quiet conversation was interrupted by distant rustles in the nearby brushes. "What was that?" Jake's instincts kicked in as he straightened in his chair. Eli motioned for silence and took a deep breath. In an urgent whisper, he said, "Stay low, and we will see what's happening." Tiptoeing through the underbrush, they kept toward the sound. Peeking through the trees, they spotted a group of men rummaging through one of the empty houses. Eli's heart raced. It was kind of a moment he had trained for, but nothing could prepare him for the sight of fellow survivors driven to so much desperation. "They're probably scouting for supplies," Jake whispered. "What do we do?" "We go back, gather the community, and prepare," Eli whispered back, weighing the potential repercussions of confronting a group of desperate men alone. "We need numbers." As they retreated silently, Eli couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about survival. A greater conflict loomed over them, one that could test their humanity. Chapter 7: The Ever Collapse. The next day, Eli gathered the community and relayed the events of the night. Fear rippled through the group, but solidarity became to form as they shared their own stories of survival and struggles. We must prepare for whatever is out there, Eli urged, his heart pounding with renewed purpose. We need to watch over our families. We must not let fear break us apart. We need to unify. As days turned into weeks, the disjointed community transformed into a family of sorts, each other offering their skills to contribute. They set up communication lines, shared family duties, and created rosters for guarding. The eerie quiet wrapped around them, broken by only the distant howl of the wind. Hours turned into days, and the landscape became a haunting reflection of their uncertainty. Tensions began to resurface as resources dwindled, and Eli felt the cracks forming in the foundation that he had built. One day, while patrolling the perimeter, Eli noticed a small figure lurking in the shadows at the tree line. His heart raced as he squinted, trying to discern the identity. "Hey!" he yelled, instinctively raising his weapon as he approached cautiously. "Come out!" As the figure stepped forward, Eli's eyes widened in shock. It was a girl, no older than 10. Her clothes were tattered, and her face was smeared with dirt and tears. "Please," she whimpered, for clouding her hazel eyes. "I'm lost, and I can't find my family." Chapter 8. A New Edition. Eli's heart ached. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked, gently lowering his weapon. "Lila," she sniffed. "I was with my mom and dad, and then there was this loud noise, and everything fell apart, and I ran away." With a deep inhale, Eli nodded to himself, thoughts racing. "You're safe now, Lila. We'll help you find your family. Let's go get you some food and water first." Eli took Lila's hand and led her back to the community. He could feel the mixture of emotions swirling within him as she clung to him, a fragile beacon of hope amid the shadows of their situation. Once inside, the community quickly rallied around Lila, providing food and comfort, but Eli could see the wariness in the adults' faces as they discussed the implications of another mouth to feed. "I'll help care for her," he insisted. "We can look for her family when we're better equipped. She deserves a sanctum amid this chaos." As the days passed, Lila became a part of their family. Eli found himself bonding with her in unexpected ways, remembering the joy of his own childhood. However, the community's resources continued to dwindle, and whispers of dissent colored the air. "Why are we wasting food on her when we barely have enough?" someone murmured one night, sparking an argument among the adults. Eli stepped in, voice steady. "Lila is one of us now," he said, fist clenched. "It is our responsibility to protect each other. If we lose our humanity, we lose everything." Chapter 9. A Fractured Peace. Eli's determination pushed through the cracks, emerging in their fragile alliance. But fragmentation simmered just below the surface. The following days brought new challenges. Rumors circulated a rogue faction operating in the area, taking what they wanted, creating fear and divisement amongst the community. Those echoes turned into whispers of betrayal, of distrust. One night, as Eli was organizing supplies with Tom, they received an unsettling report from a patrol. Multiple sightings of armed men lingering near the outskirts were pinning down their spirit like a vice grip. "We need to act," Tom urged, eyes blazing with urgency. "We have weapons. We can drive them off. It's us or them." "We have to figure out what they want first," Eli replied, weighing the reckless urgency against their dwindling numbers. "We can't just rush into battle without knowing more." But the decision didn't come to them. That night, an uproar blazed through the community as cries of panic set in. The once unified community splintered against the onslaught of chaos. In the midst of it all, Lila clung to him, fear etched across her face. And in that moment, he promised to protect her with every breath he had left. Chapter 10. The Stand. Chaos erupted as shadows blended into the night. Eli and Tom quickly realized a barricade inside the barn. They drew weapons and prepared for the impending assault. The air was thick with tension, every ear strained to hear that encroaching footsteps. "They're getting closer," someone whispered in terror, eyes darting to Eli for reassurance. "They'll regret coming here," Tom gritted through clenched teeth. "We've trained for this, and we won't go down easily." As they steadied themselves, Eli took a moment to assess their situation. Glancing at Lila, cowering behind him, she quickly became emblematic of everything they were fighting for, drawing together a ragtag family in the face of despair. The echo of footsteps crept closer until it was drowned by a cacophony of shouts. The door crashed open, splintering against the wall, revealing dark figures outlined against the flames, flickering behind them like angry spirits. "Get back!" Eli roared, leveling the rifle as he stepped forward on instinct. The confrontation felt like an eternity. A dance of strife and survival ignited in the night. But just as Eli's aim steadied, a chill consumed the air, and silhouettes blurred into shadows. The alarms of gunfire shattered through the darkness, illuminating the barn like a fiery beacon. Eli fought against the tide of chaos, shouting commands, but the ensuing panic wove a complex tapestry of fear and dread. As the fight progressed, Eli felt despair creeping in, shadows threatening to swallow their hope. But amid turmoil, fleeting moments of clarity reigned, moments that reminded him of the purpose they had fought so hard to build. Then, in the haze of combat, a figure emerged from the darkness. A man older than Eli, dusted and worn, but his presence was shouted authority. "Stop," he commanded, his voice booming like thunder, overpowering the bedlam. "Enough. We want to talk." Eli hesitated, recognizing an open maelstrom, and lowered his weapon slightly. Community members followed suit, glancing at one another, confusion mingling with curiosity. As calm descended, the man introduced himself as Samuel Renfield, a survivor from a nearby town that had faced similar devastation. His people were not martyrs, but were fleeing from rogue factions that preyed on the vulnerable. "I don't want conflict," Samuel continued, eyes scanning the crowd. "We're not here for trouble. We need a place to regroup. We can work together, protect one another." Chapter 11. Bartering Trust. The standoff had hung in the air like a wrung sponge, tensions desperate for relief. Eli felt the weight of the decision squeeze against the side of his mind. This new group could either serve as allies or herald the destruction, another risk in an unpredictable world. "What makes you different than the others?" Eli asked, searching Samuel's weathered face for truth. Samuel nodded, and understanding the weight of the question. "Trust isn't given, it's earned. We're here to find common ground. We lost everything, just like you. We can forge a pact." The group exchanged wary looks, hearts hanging in the balance, and after a few moments Eli nodded, reluctantly agreeing to hear them out. Over the next hours, they slowly blended their communities, deciding to meet in the barn to discuss supplies and strategies. Lila nestled beside Eli as conversations unfolded, and Eli felt a flicker of hope ignite despite the chaos. "I feel safer here," Lila said, her voice as soft as she glanced up at Eli, reassurance illuminating her eyes. Later that evening, Eli found himself pulled into deeper conversations with Samuel and Tom as they discussed the pairing their supplies. We can fortify the fences, create safe zones, and conduct patrols together," Samuel suggested, ambition coloring his words. "It's about unity now more than ever." Their discussions began to solidify around a shared resolve, edging towards something greater, but Eli remained cautious. The world But Eli remained cautious. The world outside still felt treacherous, shadows lurking at the brink. Days turned into weeks, with the newly formed coalition working hard to shelter the community against potential threats. They built walls, salvaged resources, shared stories, and regained some semblance of normalcy. But as they grew stronger, Eli knew they would not be spared the challenge of trust and the deeper shadows lurking beyond. Chapter 12: The Untold Truth. As Eli immersed himself in organizing the community, he began to pick up the subtle shifts in Samuel's group. Small behaviors, fleeting glances, and hushed tones began to cloak their interactions. One late night, after everyone had retreated into the depths of the barn, Eli spotted Samuel speaking in hushed tones with a familiar face, one of the men who had been destined to bring chaos before. Eli's heart raced as he approached, his nerves tingling with suspicion. "What are you doing?" he demanded, interjecting into the conversation. Samuel straightened, eyes wide with surprise, but quickly tempered himself. "We're just discussing strategy," he said, eyes darting to his compatriot. Eli's stance hardened. "No more secrets. We need transparency. What are you planning?" Samuel weighed his words carefully. "The outside world hasn't grown safer. We need to bolster our defenses against the very same people we escaped. You need to trust us." "Trust." Eli locked eyes with him, wrestling the conflicted emotions that threatened his resolve. The eerie quiet of the old barn echoed anxiously, and Eli understood that shadows loomed deeper than he had perceived. In the subsequent days, Eli kept a closer eye on Samuel and his group. The short glances and the secretive whispers hinted at something more significant brewing just beneath the surface. And then one evening, after a long day of labor, Eli approached Tom, deep in thought. "I'm worried about Samuel's group," he confessed, voice low. "Something feels off, like they haven't fully exposed their intentions. We can't let our guard down." Tom nodded, concern etching lines across his brow. "We need to establish solid communication. We can't afford to let dissension grow." Burdened by uncertainty, Eli plodded away to investigate further. Lila had become a distraction, keeping his spirits up while he dug deeper into the truth lurking in Samuel's shadow. Through the Cracks, Chapter 13. Days blurred as Eli entrenched himself into the daily routines of tending to the community, while also observing Samuel's group. He spent evenings strategizing with the perimeter guards and strengthening alliances among the conflicted groups. One moonlit night, he gathered a few trusted members and decided it was time to confront Samuel. They discreetly trailed him as he slipped into the woods with a couple of his men. Eli's heart raced as they crept silently through the shadows, unaware of what they would find. Their careful footsteps brought them to a clearing, illuminated by flickering lanterns. What Eli discovered twisted an ice-cold grip around his heart, a vibrant gathering of Samuel's men wrapped in the flickering shadows of a clandestine meeting. Positioning himself close enough, Eli strained to hear the words that spun like threads through the air. "We need to make our move soon," Samuel spoke, urgency charging his voice. "The desperation outside won't wait. We can either take what's ours or risk being overrun by outsiders." The words seared into Eli's mind. It was a plot, a plan to commandeer resources through force. He and his community had opened their doors, trusting the wrong people. Eli's stomach churned from the betrayal. He shared a quick glance with Tom, silently urging, coursing through them. This was no longer just about survival. This was about facing an enemy from within. Chapter 14: The Imminent Betrayal. The days that followed intensified Eli's unease. Through the gathering storm, distrust tensed the air in the barn, simmering like a pot ready to boil over. He and Tom discussed their findings. strategizing on how to prevent the potential betrayal. We have to warn the rest of the community, Tom stressed, concern shadowing his features. They need to be ready. Elon nodded. We can't let them know we're on to them. Any hit of suspicion and Samuel could move against us sooner than we think. They called a meeting, gathering the core groups within their community and choosing their words cautiously. Eli's voice trembled as he spoke of unity and vigilance, urging everyone to focus on strengthening defenses while nonchalantly keeping an eye on the newcomers. Meanwhile, tension ran rampant within the barn. Lila often sought Eli's reassurance, revealing her understanding of the growing discontent. Is everything okay, Eli? She asked one evening, her eyes wide, filled with a child's innocence mixed with worry. I can feel it. Something feels wrong. Eli knelt beside her, forcing a smile. Everything will be all right, Lila. Just remember, we have to stick together. But beneath his reassuring words, a storm brewed as he fortified his heart for impending conflict. He turned his attention to the scavenging supplies, fortifying defenses, and recruiting loyal members for a possible confrontation. Chapter 15: The Divide. As the days passed, tension taunted like a drawn bowstring, ready to snap. Conflicts brewed among the community, and Eli sensed that Samuel's men were plotting their move. They had divided loyalties, drawing in those who felt vulnerable or threatened. One night, amidst the darkness of their home, Eli spotted one of Samuel's men whispering in the ear of a trusted member of their community. Clandestine plans fueling the fire of distrust. Eli intervened immediately, confronting them before they could make their own move. What are you doing? He demanded, fists clenched tightly. You're betraying us. Alarm gasps erupted around them as everyone turned to witness the confrontation. Tensions bubbled as arguments swirled through the barn, dividing those standing with Eli and those succumbing to Samuel's allure of security. Eli, we need to hear both sides. One voice cried out, confusion and waxing amidst the chaos. What if Samuel can help us? In that moment of conflict, Eli understood the war stretching far beyond simple survival. It was a battle for trust, loyalty, and the very essence of humanity. He rallied his remaining supporters, his voice resonating through the crowd. We won't let fear tear us apart. We stand together as a family. We'll face anyone who tries to rip us down. The community warily nodded, drawn by the bond that Eli forged deep within them. It wasn't just a sense of belonging anymore. It was a survival against those who preyed on vulnerability. Chapter 16: The Final Confrontation. With the fracture growing deeper, the stage was set for a confrontation. Eli, Tom, and their loyal community members worked tirelessly, repairing defenses and securing the perimeter in preparation for what was to come. The faded evening dawned, heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Lila's laughter echoed through the barn, a flickering candle in the darkness. Eli cherished it deeply, and it renewed his resolve to protect the soul of what remained. When twilight descended, shadows danced across the field, stretching long and threatening against the backdrop of a crimson sky. Samuel and his men approached, emboldened by their numbers, darkness wrapping around their form like wolves and stalking prey. Eli, Samuel called out as he stepped forward, his voice smooth. You don't have to do this. We can join forces, share resources, and come together against those who threaten us outside. Eli felt the tension amplify, his heart beating, thrumming in his chest. You've already chosen your path, Samuel. We've seen you plotting against us. We're not falling into your trap. Samuel's eyes darkened, and the atmosphere shifted as pressure built on the battlefield between them. You'll regret this decision. You think you can stand against us? As Samuel's men shifted positions, Eli clenched his jaw and raised his weapon, unwavering in his decision. If you choose this fight, we will defend our home. We're not afraid. In that moment of resolve, the silhouette of their community behind them solidified like a bastion of hope, unified against the encroaching onslaught. Chapter 17: The Battle Within. With steely determination igniting the air, Samuel's men surged forward, thrusting them into rapid chaos. Eli's heart pounded as he steadied his weapon, the need for survival surging between them like a wildfire. The clash between the communities erupted like a storm. Filled with cries of fear and anger, Eli fought fiercely, adrenaline coursing through his veins, reminding him of the stakes he had been preparing for all along. It wasn't just survival, it was about their very essence. In the midst of turmoil, he caught a glimpse of Lila, a flash of fear wrinkling her brow. "Stay down," he called out, voice with raw command. The battle dragged on, each moment feeling stretched and intangible as he pushed against the tide. Glancing to his right, he saw Tom fighting fiercely. Together they wove through the battlefield, rallying their loyal community members and pushing back against the chaos. Yet, as Samuel retaliated, Eli felt angry at shadows ebb even closer. The symphony of conflict swirled around them. The urge to quell fear morphed into urgent dance with violence, as a specter of mortality hung in the air. Faces twisted in struggle, anger and desperation collided into something primal. And yet, as he fought, he recognized something deeper. The very essence of humanity swayed dangerously at the brink of conflict. Driven by fear, he initiated the pushback, determined not to let the darkness swallow them whole. Chapter 18: Renewal from Ruin. As the sun dipped over the horizon, the battle raged on, intensity throbbing in every heartbeat. Fists clashed, voices rose, and Eli's fierce loyalty ignited the kindling, a fire blooming from the dark. After what felt like an eternity, a moment of opportunity arose amidst the chaos. Samuel's men were disorganized, splintering against the strength of unity Eli had forged. Eli cast a glance toward Tom, who nodded resolutely. "Together we push them out," Eli roared, lighting that latent flame within their group. With the surge forward they advanced, pushing ensconced back toward the edges of the perimeter until the weight of the conflict began to shift. They rallied behind Eli's resolute call, combining their strength in one explosive motion. As the tide turned, cracks of light shattered through the darkness. Faces of unity emerged as members rekindled hope amidst the ruin, claiming their space under the sun that had continued to rise ever steadily. One final push sent Samuel's men scattering, panic bubbling beneath their feet, fuel for resolution twisted by the light of humanity pouring out in waves through the simple trust. In the aftermath, silence blanketed the space. Breaths shared among those gathered, hearts united beneath an unspoken understanding. Chapter 19: The Threads of Survival. As dawn broke over the horizon, Eli spent time tending to those who had fought tirelessly alongside him. The barn held the scars of battle, faint traces of fear transformed into determination. Lila's laughter echoed through the air, thus breathing life into the intention as he knelt beside her. "You were brave," he told her, pride swelling within. With each passing day, they began rebuilding, their community woven together against the tides of uncertainty that remained. They reinforced their plans, established roots that intertwined with trust and hope. Eli felt renewed purpose illuminating his spirit, guiding him toward the strength that would bolster resilience. He found the peace within the rhythms of shared duties, accompanied by Lila's innocent curiosity about the world. Together, surrounded by those who fought beside him, the remnants of hope reignited, fueling communities that chose to rise after the darkness swept through demands, a phoenix from despair. Chapter 20. The Road Ahead. Months passed, bringing them subtle changes, yet the world outside remained cloaked in uncertainty. Every rustle of leaves and every distant cry stirred echoes within the walls of their refuge. Eli felt a pressing sense of responsibility, cognizant of the layers still hidden beneath the surface of unexpected threats. The world had become fragile and volatile, yet the bonds of humanity now fortified them against the looming uncertainties. With the sun settling on the horizon, Eli gathered the communities once more to share their thoughts. We stand together, hand in hand, facing whatever comes our way, he spoke, conviction echoing in the air. But we must remember, true survival lies in our ability to trust, rely upon, and nurture one another. The rest of the townsfolk echoed their sentiments, forging a pact of resilience. Even though uncertainty loomed on the outskirts of their reality, their connection stood strong. The laughter of Lila echoed across the open fields, the promise of hope interlaced into their future. Eli gazed across the horizon, pondering the road ahead. Though the shadows may yet return, they stood ready, armed with purpose and unity. Together they'd face whatever came, emboldened by their knowledge that even in darkness, when all appeared lost, the fire of humanity could never be truly extinguished. The end.